Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota, keeping these close by today to hide the tears. Plenty of reasons to be crying.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. For our audio listeners, Sam has sunglasses.
Arif Hasan from the Wide Left Substack. For our video viewers, I'm deeply depressed.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Welcome into the Minnesota Football Party. We are live on Locked On Sports Minnesota, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We appreciate you making us your first listen today on this gloomy Thursday for a couple of different reasons here in the Twin Cities. For your second listen, check out Luke Braun's Locked On Vikings, wherever you get your podcasts. That's also where you find the audio of this show, the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. A great lineup here as well on YouTube with Locked On Sports Minnesota. We are live here every Monday, every Thursday, talking Vikings football. And today, topic A, B, and C is J.J. McCarthy's season-ending full repair of the meniscus. Had surgery yesterday. Announcement came shortly after that in Cleveland, where the Vikings have joint practices. McCarthy is done. I have a long list of ramifications of what this means. I will read that off and get insight from Arif Hasan and Luke Braun today. We'll also get Ron Johnson's insight. He's gone through the meniscus rehab. We'll talk to Ron about that and a potential injury scare with Jordan Addison, which terrified Twitter users yesterday when he went down in joint practices, though we do have a little positivity on that. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And without much happening this summer, sports-wise, for the sports that are going on, you get a boost or bonus daily with FanDuel. They're hooking you up every single day. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Not a fun day, gentlemen. J.J. McCarthy is out for the year. I think ramification number one for me is that there was a pathway where this season was lost early, but there was still optimism, right? Like expectations, I think, were actually lower this year than they have been in a while for the Minnesota Vikings, probably since like 2014, honestly. But the optimism was high because I think everybody assumed that, okay, even if the season gets off to an 0-4 start, you've got J.J. McCarthy in your back pocket. You've got the ability to build something for 2025. And now that's gone. Now that's gone for the Minnesota Vikings. If it had been like a 2-month, rehab or trim of the meniscus, I think people would have been fine with that. Okay, just put him on ice for a couple months and then he'll be ready for the second half. That's gone now. If it doesn't work with Sam Darnold, the season's over. The season's over. You might get some fun Mullins ball. I know Luke Braun would enjoy that. But it puts a different perspective on.
Let's get weird.
We'll get plenty of it on Saturday in Cleveland, that's for sure. But it dampens a lot of optimism that I think this 2024 season could have held. Luke Braun, your first reaction?
Yeah, well, there's nothing that Vikings fans are worse at handling than learning that they have to wait longer than they thought. Patience is not a virtue in high supply. Okay, so here's the thing: the procedure that they did. I'm sure Ron will talk about this when he comes in. The procedure that they did is prioritizing McCarthy's long-term health. That is why you make that decision. I don't know what the extent of the tear was. Whatever. I'm sure we'll never know exactly what nobody's going to be leaking the X-rays. I think Adam Schefter learned that lesson. But the procedure the trim would have carried long-term ramifications, and we don't want to do that with the guy that O'Connell is already calling after just one preseason game the franchise quarterback. So the fact that it ends his season is a bummer, but it is the decision that leads to him, like the most cases of him being the long-term franchise quarterback. So that feels like a decision that they had to make there. And it just sucks that we have to wait longer to see it. He'll still have the whole offseason to train, to keep working his mechanics, to keep developing. It's a different thing than a player who gets hurt in December and has to be rehabbing all offseason and can't do that. That will hurt development a lot more. Like, for example, Lewis Seen, he was rehabbing well into his next training camp, so he didn't have that offseason work on things, and that's going to set him even further behind than he already was. That's not the case here. In all likelihood, he'll be ready by like the Super Bowl, like somewhere around there. So he'll have the whole offseason. The way I've been talking about it on Locked On Vikings is this is not the destruction of J.J. McCarthy's career. It's just a delay. It's just a speed bump. And 3 years from now, we'll look back on this as a bump in the road and not like the moment it all skidded off of it.
Your hopes and dreams were not tied this season to J.J. McCarthy. There is some solace in
not until the preseason game. That's what the Vikings did.
Team, round one, pick one has been ousted. You're in some trouble there.
My hopes dashed,
squashed, snuffed, wiped out.
I think Arif is not allowed to have a fantasy team anymore because this keeps happening.
Oh, okay. I mean, I understand the sentiment, and I disagree, and I hate you. A couple of things to add here. One, Luke Braun clearly has not been doing enough reading of the medical literature, despite what he published over at my Substack, which I'm not responsible for, because he said X-rays and not MRI. Two, very confused by the comment from Lazy Television. How long are the Vikings media going to beat this topic for?
Oh my goodness.
It's a pretty important topic. It does not contain a long period of relevancy because the injury happened and then we're just not going to get updates for like a while. The surgery already happened too, so we don't even get the week later update where it's like a successful surgery, right? Like is that what O'Connell suggested, that the surgery had already occurred? Either way, a couple of things that are kind of interesting to point out, that Braun kind of points out in his piece, right? Reef's team should be called Madden Cover. That's good. One is that it's actually kind of difficult to perform some of the full repairs that would be necessary if the damage was extremely significant. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that because they were able to perform this procedure, there's a cap to how severe this could have been.
It's not always possible. If the tear is too big and too like inner where it doesn't get blood flow, it's not always possible to like fix it with sutures and expect it to then actually heal itself together.
Yeah. So that is actually the fact that they were capable of doing that. It's actually good news. Two, I guess three now, because two was the comments. Three, I never loved the idea that the Vikings could just throw McCarthy in there if the season was lost. That sucks to me. I don't like that. Now, this avoids that. That doesn't make it a good thing, but this does avoid that. And it sets, I think, expectations appropriately for Vikings fans. So not a good thing, maybe a silver lining, right? Just in terms of the way that we perceive how the season's going to go. But I never liked the idea that this was a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing, with all respect to Taylor Heineke. I don't love that, we think of rookie quarterbacks as ways to bail people out. One thing that they could have done to avoid that kind of discussion is extend Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, so it didn't feel like that there was pressure to save the season, and rather pressure for a long-term, because I believe they're both in the final year of their contract.
Second to last.
Second to last,
next year.
right?
Yeah, next year will be the last, and I'm sure they'll get extended.
the Wilfs love extending coaches immediately before a lame duck year. I don't know what that's about, but it's like very persistent. That's what they
so
do.
we'll talk about it all off season, and then it'll get done, and it'll be like a rookie contract.
Yeah.
Offset language.
Yeah, a story that exists exclusively to waste our time.
Yeah, it's truly wonderful. So yeah,
looking forward to talking about it on this show and only this show.
Yeah. Also, like there are we've gotten questions in the comments about like how this will affect his development. I've seen stories about how this will put the Vikings in the right mindset. Even stories that kind of suggest that secretly this might be a good thing. It's not. It's not a good thing. It hurts his development. It does put some guardrails on what the Vikings are going to be able to do, and some of the things that they would be able to do could have hurt his development more than this injury would have. So in that kind of way of thinking, it is possible that this was a good thing, but only in a world where the Vikings make short-sighted decisions, which we know that historically they've done. But if that's something that this regime was capable of, we were always already screwed. So it kind of doesn't matter.
Arif, the historical precedent is that Christian Ponder came in a lost season, got important reps, and then made the playoffs the next year. So clearly,
Ponder was on a team that also made the
works.
playoffs. That is technically accurate. One of the most amazing offensive teams I've ever seen, and not because it was particularly proliferate, but because it produced it all. It is a franchise that has had a history of short-sighted decisions. The Josh Freeman game looms large in that particular history. But if this was a group of people, Kevin O'Connell and Quizito Fomensa, that would feel pressured after week 4 to put in the rookie quarterback that they've been talking about all offseason as somebody that they want to sit for as long as possible while he learns the offense, relearns his mechanics, remaps his brain to better understand NFL speed, and then just put him in after 4 games. If that's the kind of brain trust the Vikings had, we were never going to make it anyway. So I don't really care about the guardrails that that this puts into place. It's going to hurt his development because he doesn't get to have the reps training his body that we would want him to have. There are ways to make up the difference a little bit, but it's never going to be as good as having a fully healthy quarterback ready and available for you to practice throughout an entire season and offseason. So it's going to be a setback. It's probably not going to be as large as we're thinking because a lot of the work that he has to do is mental, but it's pretty significant.
Yeah, Arif, and I don't think it's so much that we were counting on McCarthy to save the season and come back from 4 games behind and win the division. It's more that we saw
we've got something to cope with once.
I think we saw signs of readiness, right? We saw signs of readiness in preseason game number 1. There was talk of him getting first-team reps in the joint practices, and he had clearly passed Nick Mullins. Like there was a period of time where we were talking about, well, if Darnold got hurt, would they just go with Mullins as the backup and have McCarthy be the third? That had clearly passed. Like clearly he was the 2 and showing signs of.
Why was he clearly the 2?
You think that he was not clearly the 2?
I don't think it was clear. No, I think there's a lot of things that suggest he might be the 2, but the reason Nick Mullins isn't practicing is because he's more ready than any other quarterback. To me, that suggests a 2.
Braun, do you want to break the tie on this?
Well, I think we would just need to ask somebody who was actually at camp because I believe he was getting like exclusively second team reps, and when Mullins did get reps, they were with the third team. I think we had gotten to that point leading up to that preseason game. It didn't start that way, but the momentum was pretty clear. So if he wasn't quite officially the 2 yet, I think it was clear that he was about to be.
I'll take that as a W. But other ramifications of this event. Maybe you save a roster spot, and these are more minutia. Jaren Hall probably sticks around, maybe practice squad, maybe you have a roster spot elsewhere. Top 10 pick might be in play for next year, and you've only got a first round pick, basically. Only got a first round pick.
Travis Hunter, baby. Eyes on the prize.
We love hypothetical picks. Travis Hunter as wide receiver depth or starting quarterback? Which do you prefer?
We'll see about that Jordan Addison situation with his injury. Maybe you need to target wide receiver. I think we could again be blessed
For a
with
2-week ankle injury.
some Mullins ball. And I think KOC is like
Blessed.
done playing starters and key backups in the preseason forever. And this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back in that regard.
I mean,
Ball in joint practices where Addison got hurt.
Right. I was about to say
you can't do anything about this. Welcome to life. God hates you.
If injury participation was going to guide, he wouldn't play starters in joint practices. Like it was rough. The fact that evidently, according to multiple reports, I think Dane Misutani was one of the people who reported it. Evidently, when this occurred, right when Addison goes down in joint practices, Kevin O'Connell pulls Jim Schwartz aside, and the suggestion that people are making is that he was unsatisfied with the high level of physicality the Browns defense was bringing to practice, which would be in accordance with the reputation that Jim Schwartz has garnered over the past decade or so of coaching. Great. Excellent. Glad to see that we cannot avoid the injury bug in games or in practices. It'll haunt us forever.
KOC did.
I will say there's video
did debunk
of
that
the injury, and it is not. It's just he just kind of gets rolled up on weird.
Sure. Well, okay. If KOC debunks that again, I mean, it depends on what strong language he uses. But I'm not going to 100% trust coach speak.
Fair enough. They do have another day of these practices. I could see him not wanting to put any bulletin board material out there. I'm guessing today the Vikings are not going to put anyone in harm's way really from this point on when they have quarterback injury issues, pretty important position, cornerback injury issues, pretty important position, receiver and tight end, so pass catcher injury issues, very important position. They can't afford.
Offensive line is healthy. That's nice.
All right.
Well, except I guess not Dalton Reisner, I suppose. So not completely, but he's not starting.
Well, yeah.
Other than that.
That might be moot by cutdown day, all right?
Right.
We continue with Browns joint practice reports and notes that we have observed and what to watch for in the game on Saturday. That is next on the Minnesota Football Party. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed, and a lot of people, maybe their parents, their kids' school is starting again, activities are starting again. They've got those final summer vacations and trips. There's a lot going on. It's easy to let your priorities and your health slip. We know it makes us happy, but it's hard to make time for all of it, especially if you have work, you got kids to manage. There's a lot going on in a 24-hour day. You feel like you don't have time for yourself, time to process things. Non-negotiables like therapy become more important than ever in that case. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists at any time for absolutely no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. A bit hard to think about Saturday's game with any kind of excitement, optimism. Can't look forward to McCarthy. Can't look forward to the starters playing again. That's not going to happen. But what are you looking forward to at a deeper cut level in Saturday's Browns game after what sounds like a defensive-dominated first joint practice where the Vikings offense kind of got worked, and it sounds like they returned the favor with Brian Flores bringing the pressure on Deshaun Watson, which that was the less published bit from yesterday's practice because all the focus was on the Vikings issues. But Arif, Hasan, looking forward to on Saturday. What do you got?
I mean, I'm kind of excited about what the defensive rotation is going to be because I think that I don't think the defense overall over the course of the season is personnel-wise going to look quite the same as it did last year. I think we're going to see a bigger rotation of, it would be nice to have more nickel corners, but of nickel corners, of dime safeties, of linebackers, of defensive linemen. I think there's going to be more personnel diversity. I think we're going to begin to see some of that in that Browns game, not with the starters, of course, but rather with like the plentiful defensive personnel that they've acquired that have like a lot of different talents, right? Like, you know, you might be able to mimic, for example, what you anticipate Andrew Van Ginkel doing, which is going to allow him, you know, he's among edge rushers, someone who's capable of dropping into coverage fairly frequently. So you might have somebody like a Bo Richter attempt to do that. And we get to kind of see what that looks like, right? We're going to see probably some dime packages because the Vikings love their safeties, and I think appropriately so. It's a very deep position. So you might have Theo Jackson Lewis Seen on the field at the same time alongside, you know, the other two safeties, right? So I'm kind of curious to see kind of what the defensive architecture looks like, knowing they're not going to be playing, you know, that many of their starters.
I'm excited to see Dallas Turner. He looked awesome in that
go.
preseason game. And on closer examination, it was cooler than it looked like just live, to me at least. There was more subtlety, more strategy to it. Once you really kind of slow down and examine what he was doing, there's a lot going on there. So I'm excited to see more of that. And I think late in the game, there is such an interesting battle going on for those kind of depth defensive line spots that we had sort of penciled in for like Jaquelin Roy and, you know, maybe Gabe Murphy. Those kind of last couple spots got so interesting last week.
Yeah.
And now we'll see who can actually stand up to it.
Yeah, who's going to build on, because there were a lot of really exciting performances.
Who built on it, who just had a good day.
Right,
between
Bo
Richter and Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez and Owen Porter, who I keep forgetting to mention in this, but he had a good game too.
He had a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a me problem. It's a me problem. He had a good game. So many interesting things on the D-line. If you're looking for something to keep you interested in the third quarter while the Browns announcers drone on about Deshaun Watson or whatever, watch that D-line and see who sticks out on it, because I think there's genuinely a roster spot on the table.
Are you stuck watching the Browns feed in LA, Braun?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, bummer.
I'll be watching whatever's.
Yeah, whatever is available. Here's the segment. This is called the Do Something segment. I want you guys to name players that need to do something to make the team, and you have to punctuate it by saying do something. Also, I'll show you how it works. I heard a lot of reports about Deshaun Jones looking really good at Vikings practices. He was MIA in the first preseason game, and I think there are receiver spots available down the depth chart. So, Deshaun Jones, do something. Your turn, Braun.
I mean, the easy one is Lewis Seen, right? Somebody just said, like, putting him out there for conditional 7th round trade bait. I don't know if I think you're just relying, if you're trading him to somebody, you're getting your 2028 6-7 swap, and you're relying on somebody that had a high draft grade on him saying I can fix him. Look, against the Raiders, I thought he did fine. He did his job. It was unremarkable, but he wasn't a negative, and that's better, right, than he was last preseason where you had like missed tackles and stuff. But to actually make the team, now you have to show the explosiveness you were drafted for and actually like proactively make a play rather than just responsibly do your job, which if you're status quo about to make the team, you just kind of got to do your job. If you're somebody like Seen, who's maybe on the outside looking in, you got to do something.
Oh, that was well played.
That was good. I'm not going to.
Lewis Seen played 47 snaps, by the way, in last year's second preseason game. So they have shown that they are willing to just work him until he either shows something or, proves that he can't hang.
Yeah, I mean, he had 27 snaps in the last game because there's no circumstance where they were going to play Harrison Smith, right?
No.
So I'm not gonna do the gimmick because I'm a buzzkill, but I think
and I'll mute you. I'll mute. Okay, Arif's muted.
Play him out.
I'd be so good at being Tony Reale on Around the Horn.
Dream the impossible dream, Sam. Okay, so Players that are probably going to get a lot of snaps that I'd like to see more of, or players that had a couple of snaps that were not good. Camus Grugier-Hill would like to see more snaps from him. Would like to see more consistent play because he had some really good plays, a lot of really bad plays. So I'd like to see more there. Jaquelin Roy, your roster spot's genuinely in danger, man. It doesn't matter that you were a draft pick last year. So got to get stuff done, right? So that's going to be welcome to around the Viking horn. That's good. So I want to see a lot more there. Offensively, you already mentioned something, but hey, there are tight end spots available, and N'Keal Harry is now kinda, I guess, a tight end. He had 2 catches, by the way, so like, great. I'd like to see a little bit more for him to kind of make his way after being kind of a maligned draft pick or an always almost kind of guy. There's some opportunity there because there's going to be a lot of tight end snaps available, at least until DJ Hawkinson comes back. But I think primarily the guys that we want to see do more, that includes Jay Ward, by the way, I didn't include him, are on the defense because there's a lot of depth positions where a player who feels safe is not actually safe, where a player who feels like a long shot might not actually be a long shot. And if some people can either improve on the performances that they had last week or maintain the level of performance they had last week, including the ones I named, there's going to be some exciting shuffling happening at the bottom of that depth chart.
Jaquelin Roy and N'Keal Harry were 2 of my names that I wrote down that I want to do something.
Right.
So there you go. Also, Lazy Television asks or says, I hope they sign Gilmore this week. Yeah, the Gilmore left without a deal. This is exactly what happened with Reisner, though. And again, Reisner came in. Kevin O'Connell read him a love note. He basically wrote a sonnet for Dalton Reisner. He left without a deal. And then he came back around when there was nothing else out there. And that's what's happening with Gilmore right now, is that KOC absolutely laid it on the line.
Really strong words from KOC.
He put his heart out there to be broken, trying to express his affection.
Got to respect that kind
Gilmore.
of vulnerability. Yeah, no, for sure.
Right. So hopefully Gilmore reciprocates. I think that would go ahead.
No, I'm just saying precedent would suggest that when he signs with the Vikings that he'll fire his agent. Like that's what history has taught us.
Iambic pentameter. Yes. That was the style of the sonnet in the chat. We should have Ron Johnson soon to talk about meniscuses or menisci. He has experience in that. We also have to make our preseason fantasy team waiver claims. That's all coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. There's not as many sports going on right now as you might want, but we do have WNBA starting back up. We've also got Major League Baseball. Minnesota Twins starting a 4-game series with the Texas Rangers, and every game is getting pretty important now in Major League Baseball. We've got like a month and a half left of the season. Well, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. That's all customers, not just new customers. So head to FanDuel.com, make the most out of your summer. You can get in the action as the WNBA starts up again. The Minnesota Lynx are really good. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And we thank our everydayers for tuning in all the time here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays. He had Alvin Jones on this week, the twin brother of Aaron Jones, former Ravens linebacker. Very good interview. On Wednesdays, we talk basketball. We talk Timberwolves on the Minnesota Basketball Party. We're live Mondays and Thursdays, and then our roundtable show on Fridays with Ron Johnson and then Reggie Wilson and Julia Daniels of Care 11. Make sure to check that out. While we wait for Ron, why don't we make our preseason fantasy waiver claims? So, again, preseason fantasy teams. I am by far in last. Horrible team, horrible draft. Luke Braun a little bit ahead of me. We did have a stat correction. Arif Hasan has a small lead over Luke Inman because I failed to tabulate all of Dallas Gant's stats. So waiver claim order would be Sam, Braun, Luke Inman, and then Arif Hasan. Inman's gone, so he actually will not be able to submit that waiver claim. I don't think he needs to. The rest of us need to. So I will submit for Theo Jackson replacing Gabe Murphy. That will be my my guy. Theo Jackson racked up a team high in tackles, and Gabe Murphy is, I think, hurt. MIA. I don't know his status for Saturday, but I'm going with Theo Jackson. And Braun will be next.
Oh boy. It's rough out here. Jabril Cox cut, so that's an easy drop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get more Nick Mullins run with J.J. McCarthy out, so that works out for me at least.
Yeah,
but I need a defender. I'm thinking about Dallas Turner, but I also kind of am wondering if he's actually even going to get that many snaps.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Oh, I know who's going to get a lot of snaps. Bo Richter. Let's put him down.
Jesus.
There's no way you're getting a defensive player for a super flex.
Why wouldn't I?
Offensive players are going to score way more points, right?
Of the ones that are left? Take a look at who's available, right?
Fair enough.
Because like offense, because I was thinking along the same lines when I was constructing my waiver list, right? Theo Jackson was 1, Bo Richter was 2. After I had considered the fact that N'Keal Harry's 2 receptions were not giving me enough hope to replace my quarterback. Like that's where I'm at, right? Yeah. Okay. Also, I do want to isolate one of our better comments from Burrito Bill. If Bo Richter beats out Andre Carter for a roster spot, does that technically count as a dub for Air Force versus Navy? Fantastic work, Burrito Bill.
Yeah.
So this is pretty tough, right? So I could go with, somebody who's gotten a lot of defensive snaps and would I anticipate have a lot of defensive snaps, somebody like an Andre Carter or a Dwight McLaughlin who did not really produce in their defensive snaps, but snap count might give us more in terms of predicting. Or I could just kind of moonshot somebody, right? So I don't have access to Thayer Thomas. I already have Jalen Naylor. I don't have access to Trent Sherfield. I don't have access to Tristan Jackson, right? That's going to make it pretty difficult. Obviously, I'm not going to grab Jordan Addison. I don't have access. I don't have access to Dwayne McBride. And these are the people that received the most targets in the last preseason game. They also are the people, Deshaun Jones aside, who I also don't have access to, and Lucky Jones, who I don't have access to, who received the most offensive snaps. So this is like pretty tough. Trey Knox got 11 receiving snaps. N'Keal Harry got 11 receiving snaps. Nick Muse got 10. Right? Is Nick Muse? Yeah, Nick Muse is already on a roster.
All accounted for. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get what I'm saying, Luke, when like maybe 2 tackles could be better than the offensive players I'm looking at. I think, how much are sacks worth? 5? Sacks worth 5?
Sacks are worth 5.
I think I'm gonna. God, this is stupid. I'm gonna go with Owen Porter.
Owen Porter. So he goes from McCarthy, who had 15.3 points, to Owen Porter, who could have none. I mean, this could be an absolute game changer for Arif, who again got nothing from 2 of his guys already. Knowles and Reyes produced 0, and Luke Inman got points from everybody.
I was going to drop Reyes for somebody until the McCarthy injury. I think it would be funny, Sam, and I know it's additional work for you, if you also tracked the people I just passed up, right? N'Keal Harry and Trey Knox, right? No,
those are they're both accounted.
N'Keal Harry's on a roster. Jesus.
So is Trey. So is Trey Knox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You'd have to go with like Josh Oliver.
Okay.
Jalen Redmond still unclaimed. I actually thought a little bit about him too, but I think just by the nature of being an interior guy, might get more tackles.
He's producing for others is the problem, right? So
yeah, that's
going to be the profile.
That he was doing dirty work and other people were like Bo Richter were cleaning it up.
Yeah.
Ron Johnson's going to join us in a second. He's the host of the Ron Johnson Show at 3 Ron Johnson on Twitter/X, and he will join us now as he does every single Thursday. Ron, welcome to the show. It's a sad show. It's the end of J.J. McCarthy's season. show. You've been all over the meniscus thing from the beginning. You kind of had the spidey sense that it was a meniscus. You thought that it would probably be a full repair. You were right on both fronts. You do, and I guess I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, you have firsthand experience with your meniscus, correct?
Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, come on, Sam. We don't want Ron to be hurt.
Fortunately, you are informed enough to speak to us today. Not fortunate that happened to you. But tell us what your experience was like with it and what rehab looked like.
So honestly, looking back on it, I mean, I had to do some honest self-reflection on this. I was rushed back. Like, I thought about it after talking to, I talked to another doctor about it. I actually talked to a surgeon because I had to recently, like a while ago, have my knee looked at. And so I truly think like the things people were asking me, I went through it. I had arthritis early. I had knee issues early. I can't bend my knee past 90 degrees anymore. Like my heel will never touch my butt again. Like I can't bend down like I used to when I played catcher. And so I thought about that. Like I remember getting hurt, probably had to be like the second or third preseason game. And I was like, I don't know if I can go. And my coach is like, man, we need you. We only have, 5 receivers. We need you, blah, blah. And so I gritted it out. I played 9 games on it. And they were like, at the bye week, man, we'll get you surgery. At the bye week, my season probably should have been over. I should have had a repair and tried to come back healthier the next year. Nope. They trimmed it. I was out for about 4 to 5 weeks. And then I came back and played like the last 2 games and then the playoff game. And I thought back on it. I'm like, oh, fine. And then the next year come back. I'm fine during training camp. I'm playing just fine. And then my knee starts to I start to swell up every once in a while. I have to do different things to get the swelling out. I get released. I go get checked out, my knee and everything like that. Horrible advice from my agent at the time. He told me you don't really want to get a full checkup because if something's wrong, then another team won't sign you. I should have did it. Didn't do it. Go to the Bears. End up finding out I do have early onset arthritis, literally. And so I sit out for another, 6-7 weeks, come back for their training camp. I was fine. Got another little bang in the first game. Again, swells up. I get released, come back, same thing, go to the Redskins, same thing happens again. So I think what J.J. McCarthy's going through is smart. Do the full repair. Allow that meniscus to completely reattach, because RG3 talked about it. Like, I think I'm pretty close to that where it's bone on bone because I never had it fully repaired. I just shaved it down. And so what happens is they're basically taking material out of your knee in order for it to continue to move and be okay to play. But are you 100%? No. And I think that's the thought behind it. Like for me, I was thinking if he had to play, let's rush him back. Let's go. But once they shave it, they can't do any of the next step. Because I asked the guy, I said, if they shave it down and then you, at the end of the season, do a full repair, what does that look like? And they're like, well, the piece is gone, so it's no longer yours. You have to get a replacement meniscus. And so then they will get a replacement meniscus in there. So that is the other option. But, of course, that's just short term. Let's get them back for the season. Let's get them to play. And then at the end of the season, let's fix it completely. But you don't know what you're going to go through when you do that. You don't know how much you're going to mess up by doing it that way. It is his meniscus now, whether it's a little bit of MCL or whatever it might be, but it's his meniscus. They are going to they repaired it. So that allow him to, because the biggest thing is blood flow. Getting the blood flow back through that is what I heard too. Certain parts of it lose blood flow, and that's what can create degenerative meniscus issues. And so being able to get the blood flow through there, being able to keep him off his feet, like I said, he's going to be off his feet for a while in order to let it completely heal. And then he'll be back, sometime in 6 to 9 months. And then next year, we'll see how Sam Darnold does this season, because I don't think we're going to see Nick Mullins or Jaron Hall, hopefully. But with Minnesota, like luck, you never know. Like we are destined to give the world some craziness. We might have to bring Josh Dobbs back. Who knows? I know he's with the Arizona Cardinals, but I say that's the thing for J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings did the best for him, which is get him 100% healthy for next year.
And Ron, one more on this. There's a number of ripple effects and domino effects that come from news like this, whether it's the 2024 expectations, 2025 outlook. What do you think is the biggest domino effect that comes from this news?
Man, the biggest domino effect from the J.J. McCarthy news is I think Jaron Hall has a little bit more like security now, because that roster spot, he's going to go on IR, so he's no longer on your roster, so it's no need to say. Because I saw some stupid reports like, if he's on IR, can he talk to the coach? Yeah, you idiot. He's not like excommunicated. He's still in the building doing rehab, and he's on crutches. Like, it's not like he got arrested and he has to go to Guantanamo Bay or something. Like, Yeah, he's gonna be at Egan doing rehab every day. He can sit in on meetings. He can meet with Kevin O'Connell. He'll probably be able to come to the games once they allow him to say, okay, you can be on your feet, because I know it's crutches and all kinds of stuff to keep him
on
off
the little
that leg.
scooter, right?
A little scooter, maybe a golf cart or something to bring him out there and set him by the side, like Bernie's weekend at Bernie's or something. Just cart him out, put sunglasses on him and a hat, say, like, just sit here. But yeah, no, he'll be able to learn from Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. He'll be in the meetings when he's ready to come back. They have all kinds of technology now. They have travel ice machines. Now, traveling probably won't be the best because you don't want any swelling or anything to set him back. So I'm guessing he won't go any road games. But yeah, he'll definitely be in there listening. So now your third quarterback becomes Jaren Hall, unless he just, because now I think the plan is going to be Sam Darnold, maybe, I don't know, 2 series. Or do you say, like, oh crap, we got so many injuries during the Browns week, we don't want anybody out there. That could happen. You got a full go of Nick Mullins, and then you get Jaren Hall in there, because before we didn't see much of Nick Mullins, but now I think it's like, okay, dude, you're backup now. You got to get going, and then now Jaren Hall, you're the emergency guy. We need you to get going. So I think that's the ripple effect. Now you got to get these other 2 quarterbacks in the 2s and 3s.
And the Vikings suddenly look really smart for locking up Nick Mullins on a 2-year deal like they did, because they very easily could have gone Darnold, McCarthy as their 1-2, and they do have Mullins as a backup, which actually
could have been calling Sean Mannion, and we still might.
Yeah, he's still on the table.
Kyle Schloter, time to bring him back.
Yeah, that is definitely a name. Sorry. One thing that we kind of learned as, players have been a lot more open about the things that they've been experiencing. Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson have both gone through pretty significant injury and have been very open about the experience, about recovering from injury. I have a strong belief in J.J. McCarthy's support system and the foundation that he's built for himself psychologically, but it's still really tough to recover from injury, especially a long-term injury, one that's 6 to 9 months. You can't move around a lot. And, athlete identity is like really built around like what your body can do. And it's just not going to listen to you for months at a time. And then the routine that you have as an athlete, workout in the morning, attend meetings in the afternoon, whatever, that's taken away as well. I mean, one of the worst parts about rehab seems to be, according to these athletes, is that it's insanely boring. How if J.J. McCarthy asked you for advice on how to handle these mental health challenges as he's going through rehab, how to believe in himself and his body and his motions again, what would you say to him?
Yeah, that was the first thing I tweeted. I think yesterday I was like, the mental health side of this is what people don't realize. Yeah, it's tough because you're on an island, you're isolated, you're by yourself. I mean, I remember when that happened to me after my surgery, like it's a little bit of depression. Like I was depressed for a little bit. You just don't know if you don't feel like you're able to come back. Like it's just like, man, this thing hurts. It's sore. You don't want to take. I personally didn't want to take pain pills. So I'm trying to like grit and bear it through the night to figure out how can I get through the night with this pain. I'm sleeping with an ice machine hooked up to me. So like it's a machine they can hook up to you. Your spouse or whoever, has to pump the ice in there and refill it every couple hours. So you're up in like 4 a.m. trying to get ice back in there to freeze it back up to like numb the sensation a little bit. But yeah, you're on an island. You're kind of by yourself. You're not doing the stuff with the team. I think mentally, man, like looking back on it, I wish I had more of this then. You kind of got to have a prayer group. You got to have a group of guys, man, that you can talk to, that you can, rely on and be open and honest with. I think so often men are supposed to be gladiators and we're not supposed to hurt or we're not supposed to be depressed or have pain. And that's why you see so many guys like go through stuff or men take their lives because they just feel like they're alone. I think that's the key. I know the Vikings do a great job of mental health. They talk about suicide awareness and all that stuff, and not to say he's there, but you just really don't know what a person goes through until they go through it. And so I think that's the toughest part is being, PJ Fleck talks about it with his players, how do I, this warrior, I'm supposed to be on the field. How do I be vulnerable when I need to be vulnerable and feel like people are listening? Some people can say, man, like I'm not doing good. And then, other people are gonna be like, man, what do you mean not doing good? Dude, you got $10 million in the bank. Like, what people don't realize is think about all the NFL players that we found like in hotels or, under underpasses or, living in their cars and they got, huge mansions, or killing themselves. Like you just don't know. Like it has nothing to do with money. And I think that's why, if you recently saw the Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown interview, like they need help. Like they're both asking each other, you think you got CTE? And they just laugh like, bro, wait, are you serious? And then he's trying to define what CTE is. Like, it's literally a definition. That's like saying, like, do you think this is pizza? Man, you know what I think pizza is? I think it's really just like cheese with pepperoni slices. This is not a thing. You know, like that, like he was trying to explain it as if it's something other than what it really is. And I think that's the tough thing too, to identify with your injury. And so J.J. McCarthy's first going to have to know, okay, yep, I'm out. Next, what does this rehab look like? 6 months? That's a long time, you know, but you got to mentally be ready to attack it, like Kirk Cousins, like Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if if he has a relationship with either of those guys too, but you know, guys like that can help him through it. Being able to say, look, this is what it looks like, you know, for this long-term type of recovery.
Taking this back on the field, Ron, without J.J. McCarthy and all the excitement that came with that, hey, look, preseason games are still going on. What are you watching for now?
I'm still watching N'Keal Harry. Like I want to see these tight ends, Robert Tonyan, N'Keal Harry. I thought Robert Tonyan returned to practice, it looks like it said. So you got Robert Tonyan, N'Keal Harry. We know Josh Oliver, because somebody has to be like, I mean, it's not going to be one person, but you got to figure out these TJ Hawkinson reps, like who's going to take some of these routes off of his plate and do that job for Sam Darnold, quote unquote, because we know TJ Hawkins is a huge part of this offense, one of the best tight ends in the league. The other thing to watch too is now Brandon Powell probably felt the pressure from these past preseason games because of what Jalen Nailor did. And so now what does Brandon Powell look like? Like, is he really going to push for this wide receiver 3, or is he kind of like, all right, I'm good with 4? Because like the night practice, he actually had some good reps and some good routes run and some good stuff going on. So now I'm interested to see, like, do they get him back involved in this offense? Or does this continue to become the Jalen Nailor preseason show? And then on the other side of that, the defensive backs, like, you know, what's going to happen? Do they need to bring, you know, like, do they look so bad that Stephon Gilmore now has the leverage, or can they look serviceable and not have wide open guys running when you know, like, here's the coverage, here's the zone. Why are you not where you're supposed to be? And that's going to be the next step. Watching those DBs. Are there free runners? Are there blown coverages? Or are these guys starting to understand? Because again, I've heard understanding what Flores wants based on alignment and then assignment can be hard if you really don't know what you're doing. And so I think that's the next step for that defensive back group.
Yeah, Ron, I'll be watching that wide receiver depth closely as well. We're probably going to see a lot of Nailor, Tristan, Sherfield, and Powell in this game, I would think, catching passes from Nick Mullins. We'll see who stands out. That could be the wide receiver 3 battle decided maybe as early as this Saturday. Great stuff. We'll see you on the postcast after Saturday's game, Ron, with Luke Inman, myself, Luke Braun. Should be a lot of fun. We'll see you then.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff. Ron Johnson at 3 Ron Johnson on Twitter/X and host of the Ron Johnson Show. Does a great job with us every single Thursday. We're in our closing minutes, guys. Just wanted to again touch on Jordan Addison going down, ankle injury. Kevin O'Connell doesn't think it's serious. What's your gut say on this quickly, Arif? Will we see Addison again until like Labor Day?
Like on a preseason field, absolutely not.
Practice
field. Yeah, in practices against the Browns, certainly not. Practices before Labor Day, I think so. This is a coaching group that has not earned the benefit of the doubt when they tell us about the severity of injuries, right? Much like the previous coaching group. And so it's pretty difficult to kind of figure these things out. I'm going to give them a bit of a pass on the McCarthy thing. I think they genuinely didn't think it was as bad is maybe the wrong word, as in need of intervention as it was, is maybe a better way to put it. Before they got that MRI, I'm glad they did their due diligence there. But generally speaking, they've underplayed injuries, even at the receiver position. Jalen Nailor last year, he was always like a couple days away from returning to practice. And, you know, it took weeks into the season before he was even activated, and weeks past that before he saw the field. So I don't really want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it very much seems like, given how quickly, you know, it was leaked, that actually it's fine. My read of the tea leaves here is that it is not that severe, and we'll see him practicing before the season begins.
Braun, panic level?
Yeah, not going to see him until 2026, I'm afraid. No, it is like, I get that people are very sensitive about like routine soreness in the same way that they're still sensitive about the tweak thing.
Yeah.
From
Can't say the
now,
word
which is
tweak
5
anymore.
years ago now, by the way. We
Still
can
can't
move on
say
to
it.
the next iteration of it.
Ankle tweak.
But he also was seen in a walking boot and crutches, walking away from from that, and was carted off. So like the physical evidence is not great. O'Connell is trying to assuage us. Here's a thought. I have no idea. I feel like it's okay to just be like, I don't know. We'll see.
Can we fire Luke? That take is way too boring.
Lukewarm, if you ask me.
I almost was going to say it, and I didn't like that.
I've seen about a zillion ankle twists watching sports over the years. Baseball, basketball, football.
Baseball injuries aren't real. They don't count. Those players are paper mache.
Well, the Twins injuries are all fake. You are correct about that.
Yeah. So are the Twins and all of baseball.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if I'm comparing what I saw in the video to what I've seen in 30 years of sports watching, that is a multi-week injury. Now, is it going to cost him a regular season game? Maybe not. But that's the type of injury where that could pop up again. That's my negative glass half empty view on it. Again, injury regression for Addison feels inevitable after the fairly almost entirely healthy season he had last year. I think one minor thing popped up, played 17 games. That is a worry for me.
Twisted his ankle and missed the rest of the season, didn't he? Or he came back
He played in 17.
Or he played in. Okay, so he missed the Packers game with the ankle twist he got in the Lions game. I think was that the deal.
Do we know if it's
he
the same
attempted to
ankle?
play in every game?
It is
kind of concern. Okay, great.
Yep.
Fantastic. Good news.
That's the real concern is that it is the same ankle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So happy.
Got to do some pistol squats, man. Build some stability there, dude.
Yeah.
Listen
it's
to me,
the same deal.
Coach.
It's the same deal twice too. Like he just got rolled up in the Lions game by friendly fire. This time it's just they both went up for a pass. They came down and the defender just kind of fell on him.
We do this Mondays and Thursdays. We are also on the postcast, which will be after every single game, including preseason games. Come join us then after the Cleveland Browns game. That'll be Saturday evening with Luke Braun, myself, Ron Johnson, the whole crew. Thanks a lot for watching and listening today on the Minnesota Football Party. We will talk to you Monday reacting to the Browns game. See you then.